Today, the very first one we're going to do is just simply create a basic terrain. And that basically means creating the mountains, valleys, rivers, etc., and texturing that ground as well. We won't be placing any objects, start points, spawn points, or anything like that today. That'll come in the next tutorial. So at this point you should have your main screen for your Battlefield 2 editor up, and what we're going to do is we're going to select a startup mod. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new mod by simply clicking on Create New Mod, clicking OK, and giving our new name, our new mod, a name. So I'll just create my mod, which is default. Okay, after several minutes of loading, you should be in the object editor. That is the default editor that will come up in the Battlefield 2 editor. What we're actually going to do, though, is we're not going to be doing anything with the objects today. We're going to be doing terrain. So move your mouse up to the top left-hand corner, bring down the pull-down box, and select Terrain Editor. And you'll see on the right-hand side we had some menus change, but other than that, everything looks the same. So the first thing we've got to do is we've got to create our basic terrain, which will give us our size of our map and some very flat surfaces. So go to File, New, give it a name, and we'll call it First. And today, because we're going to do something small and something quick, we'll change our size to 256, leave everything else at default, making note of the default height of 25, because that will come in later when we set up our water. And just click OK. What this will do now is it will create a very basic terrain. How long this takes will of course depend on the speed of your computer and how much memory you currently have. Normally it doesn't take very long though. So now that you have your very first terrain loaded, and in the center of the screen you should see a fairly washed out checkerboard pattern. This is normal. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to set up our textures to paint on this surface with. So the first thing you should do is go up to the mini icon that says Texture. It looks like a little paintbrush. Click on Texture. After a couple of seconds or so, you'll have your options on the left hand side to be painting all of your texture layers. Basically what your texture layers are is simply 6 brushes that you can use, and that's the maximum number of brushes that you can paint on the surface with. Now as I said, this takes a couple of minutes, as is per normal. Okay, so now we're all done. Now on the left hand side you'll see we have our layers. Just click on the plus sign to open them up. Click on the very first layer, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to move my 3D window a little bit so that we can see everything. Here's what we got to take special note of. We have 2 different types of textures. We have our detailed texture and our color texture. And what this basically gives you is it gives you 2 different types of textures. Of course, the detailed texture is what you see when you're really close to the terrain. And this is actually what you see in the game itself when you look, say for example, if you look straight down, which would be very close to you, you'd see the detailed texture. And out in front of you, a few distance, maybe 50 or 60 meters in front of you, you'll see the color texture. And of course it'll transition into a high detail texture as you get closer. And below that you also see a color. And that basically is what we're going to see on our 3D picture here when we don't see the detailed texture. So let's just select our color first, and we're going to select something like a green. And we're going to select our color texture, and what I want you to select is the green 06, because it's going to be sort of grassy is what we're going to paint, and we're going to do our detailed texture. And of course after you click on that, up will come a list of all the different detailed textures that you can get. So come on down and select maybe a detailed grass 03. Now in the right hand you'll see one of our textures actually has something in it. And what we're going to do is we're going to go into paint mode. The detail, we have 3 selections: detail, color, both. If you paint with just detail on the surface of the thing, here's what you're going to get. We'll pick our brush size way up and our brush strength way up, and you've got to go in really close. Oh, and one of the things I forgot is we're not in detail texture mode. Okay, so now what you see is you see the detail grass. Now obviously right now this is actually quite washed out and it doesn't really look all that good. So if you hit the right mouse button, you should be able to take it away down to black. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go to color and paint with the left mouse button, and you'll notice now what you see is you see that low resolution texture. But you'll notice one thing: if I paint in color out here and out here, you'll notice you actually see it. But if I were to go to detail mode and I were to paint out there, you don't really see any change until you actually go out next to it, just like this. See now, and that's what I mean by detail. What we want to actually do is we want to actually paint in both. And the reason we want to do that is so that we see we're doing both our detail texture and our color texture. So what we'll do is we'll paint out a little bit further, and you'll notice now that you see the color texture. You don't see the detail texture yet because, of course, we're not close to it. But as you move out, you'll notice that it changes and transitions to the detail texture. So that's just basic texturing right now. And that should, now what I'll also do is let's add another layer. So we'll go to second layer, we'll set up our color texture again, and this time maybe we'll do a grass yellow for that, and we'll do a detailed texture. And what we're going to do in this is we're going to set up a different detailed texture, and we'll come down and maybe we'll find something that's a bit more yellow. Oh, how about grass 06? So we make sure that our texture number 2 is selected and paint it out there. Now you see how it's a bit more yellow.